When we prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value.
But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
This is Sales Logic, and this morning, Mark and I are coming to you from the Dominican Republic. Happy New Year, happy 2026, and time to make it a great year to sell. Mark, we got a powerful show this morning. What are we diving into?
We do. It's one of those couple times a year when we're actually live face-to-face, but the topic today is how to prove ROI and value. Stick around to the end of the show because the lightning round, top 10 ways to get to decision makers. So, hey, let's jump to the topic. How do you prove ROI and value? Because that is the topic everyone is struggling with right now.
Yeah, and I think 2026, I think it's always been important to prove ROI and value, but 2026, that is going to be the year to do it. And I think the most important place to start is you've got to know what the ROI is for the customer. I think you can't sell ROI and value until you ask the right questions to determine the ROI and value.
Yeah, because ROI means different things to different people. This is the whole thing. We can sit here and say ROI is X, but they may judge it differently. So you've got to ask that question. So one of the questions that I love asking is, how do you measure the effectiveness of transactions or deals or investments that you've made before? You got to ask the customer those types of questions to find out.
Terry Brock, welcome to the show. That's right. We are hanging out in the beautiful Dominican Republic. Talk about ROI and value. I mean, you want to sell ROI and value. I think one of the most important questions that you need to ask is understanding the sense of urgency around what it is that you're discussing. I mean, for example, what is it that the customer is hoping to get and how important is it to them? I might be selling leadership training, but if they haven't driven sales, then leadership training is not their biggest need. And ROI to me is about the biggest need they've got.
And when we talk about value, let's break that down because value is downstream. And I talk about downstream a lot. What is this going to do? How is this going to help you achieve something else further down the road? And that's what's absolutely key. So let's back up the bus here. Let's talk about ROI, return on investment. And one of the things that you as a salesperson have to do is believe in the ROI that you're going to be able to create. Because if you don't believe in it, how can you help your customer believe in it? So here's a simple mathematical formula. Look at the total cost of the investment, including the cost of execution on the part of the customer. Okay, now back that into what is the expected gain? The expected gain might be decreased turnover employees. It might be greater customer approval ratings. It might be more sales. It might be whatever. But now I've got to be able to attach what is the value? What is the outcome? Now I can begin to back into the ROI. But here's the key thing. ROI to some customers might be the gross revenue. Others, it might be the net profit. This is why you've got to ask up front, how do you determine ROI of any kind of project?
It also could be peace of mind. It also could be saving time. I mean, I think it's important to note that ROI is so much more than a cost savings. I mean, like we all buy insurance, certainly not for a cost savings. We do it for a peace of mind, like a security blanket. So you've got to know what that return on investment is, and you've got to talk in terms of the return on investment. Like you're not selling the products and features of what your product or service is offering. You've got to talk about the return on investment, about what you've got to deliver.
And that brings up an interesting piece because we talk about, I'm buying insurance, I'm buying peace of mind. But you know what's interesting about buying insurance is that I am preventing risk. So you can sit there and magnify risk to the client. You can go ahead and talk about, hey, if we don't do this, what is the potential risk of what could happen? And you know what's interesting? Customers will, just as we buy insurance, customers will do amazing numbers of things. They will buy numbers of amazing things to avoid risk. So don't hesitate to sell the risk.
Yeah. I think if you want to sell value too, like you have to be ready with your value proposition, your differentiator in the marketplace. Like everybody, we were just using insurance. Everybody sells insurance and the ROI is mitigating risk. But the value is, why should I buy the insurance from you rather than from somebody else? So what is your value proposition that is differentiating you from everybody else in the marketplace?
Oh, I love where you're going with that, because you is trust. It's the trust factor. I've said this before. In the absence of trust, low price is everything. So the more I can create trust with you, the customer, the more willing you are to be able to spend with me. So, hey, one of the ways that you can reinforce this and demonstrate ROI and value to a customer is by sharing with them a proof of performance of another customer. I do this all the time. I will sit there and walk them through. Now, I mask the data. I mask the names and so forth. But the idea is to show them, hey, this is what other companies, other customers have been able to achieve by buying from me. And it's amazing how that creates a level of confidence, and it allows them to be able to see, this is the ROI that I might be able to expect.
Yeah, I also think like Gina Carr is asking a great question here. Happy New Year, Gina. ROI and AI and marketing can be tough to measure. Absolutely. A lot of us sell products and services where the ROI is tough to measure. But what you're selling with both AI and ROI is the loss if you don't do it, right? Like maybe you can't get finite on what you are offering, but you can get finite. Like if I don't market my business, then I don't have visibility. Nobody will know of me. What's going to happen? So it's almost like you're selling a sense of fear, right?
This is one of the things that I want to come back to, because I love this, because the more trust I create, the more you're going to buy into the statements that I'm sharing. That's what I'm looking for. When I can get that, it's amazing at how now I'm able to really demonstrate value, because value takes on different things to different people, and we better be able to understand. Hey, I want to jump to the question, because the question comes from Amal in Morocco. She says, we love the show. We listen as a team to Sales Logic every week. Here's our question. How do you not sell on price when procurement turns every conversation to price? See, this is that whole value ROI equation. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that, first of all, is welcome. That's selling to procurement, right? It's always going to be about price. But understand, even with procurement, everybody, not just procurement, defaults to price. We all believe that price is what we're buying because as salespeople, that's typically all we are selling. And, think about what you buy. I mean, Mark will buy coffee at Starbucks. All right. And I would never buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks because there isn't value, but he loves the taste of that. He loves the experience. There's value. That's what they're selling to him. To me, price is what I'm buying. So I think if procurement is pulling everything to price, you have to make sure you're selling to a company that is not 100% price sensitive. Getting that client right is incredibly important.
But now, see, understanding, because everybody is, ultimately, it always comes down to price, but it's the value that you're going to get. You're right. I will pay $3.19 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks and not even bat an eye, because it's the convenience, it's the consistency.
Right.
I have the app. It reaches me on a number of different value levels. And like you said, you will go, because you and I have been at meetings, you will sit there and go to a McDonald's and pay $1.19 for coffee.
Yeah.
And I mock you on that. And of course, you mock me for buying the Starbucks. See, people have different value equations. This is why you have to determine what is the value that the customer is looking for. This is why you got to ask that question. How do you measure the effectiveness? How have you made decisions like this in the past? And you got to understand, how does this purchase, because no purchase is a one-off purchase. It always is connected to something else. What is it connected to? What's the value of that? Because many times the value of what it's connected to is worth so much that they will spend any amount of money to buy from you.
Yeah, I think it's also really important too that that you like it has to be the right customer. That was really the point I was making. Like Starbucks can market to me, but I don't want to pay. I will not pay that amount of money for a cup of coffee unless I'm desperate because the value isn't there to me. But it was interesting. I was doing these pre-test I was paying for these tests to determine if you have any markers for cancer or anything in your body. And a friend of mine said, "How much is that?" And I said, "It's $900." She goes, "Oh my God, I would never pay $900 for a test." And to me, $900 is worth it to determine whether I have any pre-markers for cancer to get. So it's a different mindset shift. So I think it's really, really important that before you ever talk ROI and value, you determine if you've got the right customer in front of you.
Well, that brings up an interesting piece because $900 on the surface may seem like a lot of money, but if you put it in conjunction with what would cancer cost, what is the risk factor of that? 900 is chump change. You would pay 9,000 for that. You would pay significantly more. And that's what you have. This is why you have to understand what is the value proposition that the customer is looking for. But I want to go back to what Amal was talking about in terms of procurement. And I'm going to sit there and say, hey, procurement is the business prevention department. They're right up there with HR. Okay, I offended any HR people who are listening to this because here's the whole thing. Procurement is all about their objectives. And their objectives is to get the low price, right? But here's the whole thing. Why are you selling to them? Procurement is going to get involved, but at the tail end, I'm doing a major project right now with a client. But I sold it all in to the powers that be. We negotiate the price. Then it goes to procurement. And by that time, it's all said and done. Procurement is never a point of entry. Salespeople, pay attention to this. You don't sit there and say, oh, I guess I want to get in this company. Go to procurement. No, go to the user, go to the influencer, go to the decision maker. Then you only come down to procurement at the last opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. You shouldn't be selling to procurement. The CEO or the person, your contact should have sold to procurement. But I want to put in here and see what Andy had to say. Price really means exchange. For a specified amount, we will exchange funds for the delivery of a product or service. It is interesting to note that the word exchange comes from the root of the word change, which is exactly what's occurring during this transaction. Beautifully said, Andy.
Andy, I love what you're saying there because it is an exchange of services. I'm giving you something, you're giving me money. And again, it comes back to the value proposition. This comes back to really, I think, even a more fundamental piece. Never put on the table your price until you understand what is the challenge, what's the problem that the customer is dealing with. Because again, until I know that, I can't even begin to even think that I might even be the right person for you because I may not be the right person. It's understanding what is the problem. And believe me, people will pay a lot more to satisfy a pain than they will a gain.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I love what Terry Brock is saying. He's saying, you two are so right. ROI is more than just money. As important as that is, it is also about how customers are feeling and working with you and wanting to do more in the future. That kind of goes back to a lot that what Gina said, where it's really hard sometimes with certain things like AI and marketing to prove ROI. But that's your job as a salesperson. Like if you're selling something where you don't know the ROI, you don't know the value, you need to go back and figure that out first before you question anything. If you don't feel like you are making a difference, if you don't feel like something is going to be different after they deal with you, then you're not ready to sell a product or service.
This comes back to the fact that you want to go back and look at all your customers in the past and really begin to ask yourself and ask the customer, what is the value that they receive for it? Because if you can develop a list of clients that you've been able to help, you've been able to really, and you can document this, you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel much better about your price. You're going to feel much better about the investment you're looking for the customer to make. Because remember, customers do not buy anything. They invest. They invest because they're looking for an outcome. So when you've got this whole list of outcomes, now guess what? You've got stories, you've got examples that you can share with customers. that goes a long ways.
Yeah, and think about people who sell things cheaper than you do. Like, we'll use marketing for an example. Maybe one marketing person is X amount, the other is 10% higher. If you cannot tell the customer why they're going to sell that 10% higher, why it's worth it to them to spend 10% more, then they shouldn't spend 10% more. I mean, there's no reason. I call this, you need to understand that customers aren't responsible to know the ROI and the value. We all look the same to them. We all look vanilla. It's our job to sell them. I call this, for anybody who's old enough to remember Paul Harvey, I always say you got to sell the rest of the story. You have to sell ROI and value whether the customer asks for ROI and value or not. You need to sell it in the call, and you need to put it in the proposal. You need to say, in addition to this price, you will get blah, 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 blah.
I love what you're saying there. And again, one of the other ways that you can do this, and I had this happen. I just got an exchange of emails yesterday from a customer that I'm looking to do business with, and VP of sales. He was asking for some referrals. So I gave him some referrals. And it's interesting, but he copied me on the emails that he sent to them. And these people responded back, oh, Mark was able to do this, this, and this. And it was amazing how much value they spoke of what I brought them. So you know what? Yeah, this is going to work out very well because I didn't have to communicate value. Other customers created the value picture. And I let them talk back and forth. You see, when we create value, there's many different ways that we can do it. But when I can do it by an example, this is why I love proof of performance, proof of example. Let them see other things. It's amazing at the success you will have.
Yeah, and if you don't know what your risk and value are, if you don't know why customers pay you more money, then you need to go ask your customers. Years ago, I had a client who was selling accounting software to small manufacturing firms, and he was getting crushed by third world countries. And his sales team wanted him to lower the price, and he couldn't lower the price anymore because if he lowered the price any more than that, he was going to be selling below margin. He wouldn't make any money. And he didn't know why his current customers paid the price that they paid. But we went out and talked to them, and we found that they loved the fact that he would customize his software. They loved the fact that somebody always picked up the phone. They never went into a phone tree. They were tired of every time they worked with a competitor, those competitors were sold every 2 to 3 years, and they were tired of having to start all over with a new company. We just started to work those things into the sales conversation, whether the customer asked or not. So what that looks like is in 2026, you need to be saying, this is my price, and for this you get, so that when they compare me to Mark, they understand the difference. I always say there's only 2 reasons you lose on price. Number 1, you didn't choose the right customer. You tried to sell Starbucks coffee to me rather than to Mark. The second reason is you didn't sell the risk and value.
And I love what you're saying there. And that's why you never present a naked price. You never present just the price alone. When you present the price, and we could do a whole episode again on price that unless there's legs attached, you're having a conversation with them, don't present price. But here's what I say. Just before I present price, I'm going to go back and I'm going to restate what's the challenge, what's the problem that the customer's having, and I'm going to restate the value proposition to ensure that they buy into it. Because if I can get them to, oh yeah, that's my problem, that's my pain, that's my pain, that's my pain, then it's amazing. The price becomes so much easier for them. This is how, go back to Amal in Morocco, you get around procurement. Because again, I got to share that conversation before it gets to procurement.
Yeah, I think a great exercise for people to do that are listening to the podcast is go back to a couple of clients you lost on price. They went with somebody that was cheaper than you, and figure out why they went with somebody that was cheaper than you. Because in there lies the answer as to why you're failing at procurement. That's the problem.
Yeah. And many times what's interesting is that they are not good. They didn't achieve the value that they were looking for, or they achieved the value that they were looking for, but you were looking for something different. You see what happened was you and the customer were not on the same page in terms of defining value. Hey, the book.
I'm going to answer Rufus.
Yes.
Quick. So ROI equals value a company is rendering. Yeah, it's what they're looking for. That's the ROI. Absolutely.
And this comes back to, I hate talking price. It's investment. What's the investment? So, hey, the book. Value-Based Selling by John Doerr and Neil Rackham. Boy, it's been around for a long time. Neil Rackham is just a legend.
Oh, and Neil is a legend. And value-based selling, to me, it is the foundation of how to sell value in every type of organization.
I love it. So grab that book. Okay, you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
Top 10 ways to get to decision makers.
Number one, build your reputation in the marketplace.
Number 2, network your way in. Top decision makers connect with other top decision makers.
Number 3, get referrals if you want to get to decision makers.
Number 4, you got to understand the language with which they talk under. You got to be able to speak at their level.
Yeah. Number 5, reach out with ROI. Reach out with the problem and how you would solve it.
Number 6, be consistent in sharing insights and value that's going to help them. In other words, you're serving them before you're trying to sell them.
Yeah. Number 7, use case studies and client testimonials.
Number 8, if you don't believe in the outcome you create, if you go in with any kind of hesitancy, they're going to smell it and you're going to get blown out of there.
Yeah. Number 9, if you want to get to a decision maker, number 1, use another decision maker to get to a decision maker.
Number 10, if you're trying to get to decision makers, in other words, these are higher level people, you got to cast off and get out of your way the lower level people, because again, they will poison your thinking. You've got to be thinking at the top level. So anyway, hey, with that, I want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. And remember, hey, if you've earned a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow and we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter from the Dominican Republic.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell.
When you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical. Hey, we should talk about SKOs, right?
Yeah, we should definitely. If you have a sales kickoff meeting, you've got a sales conference coming up, you're looking for a little bit of sales training, reach out to Mark, reach out to me. We'd love to come to you, help you really turn 2026 into your best year on record. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic. Until then, go close the deal.